On this episode of Turning Point Tactics, I'm going to be talking about the Tomb World new box set that has come out for Kill Team. Thank you very much, James Workshop, for sending me this nice and early to be able to give you guys a review of what I think about this team. So I'm going to talk about Deathwatch first and foremost, and in a separate video, I'll talk through the Canoptic Circle. But let's first get started with the veterans of the Imperium, the Deathwatch, the original OG Kill Team. Let's get straight into it. Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics, the competitive Kill Team 40k YouTube channel focused on giving you the strategies and tactics to seize initiative every turning point. I'm your host Ryan, and I'm here to help give you the tips and tricks that elevate every part of your Kill Team experience. So no matter if you're a casual or a competitive player, there should be something here for you. If you're interested in supporting the channel, there's a few ways you can go about doing so. You can join the Patreon, where you get access to members only Discord, Patreon priority questions, early access to content, exclusive content, and tournament awards. Or if you find yourself buying Kill Team goodies or hobby supplies, you can use one of our affiliate links in the description below, or discount codes with Crossfire Games and GG Prints. We're always keen to hear your thoughts and feedback, so don't leave that comment box empty. Let us know what you think. Once again, thanks for your support, and with all that said, let's get into it. Okay, so first up, we're talking Deathwatch. So in the Tomb World book, you're clearly getting both these two kill teams for rules, as well as rules for the new environment that's in there as well. But most of you who know me will know that I'm way more excited about the Deathwatch kill team than I am about pretty much anything else that's in this. But yeah, let's get straight in and show you what the new Marines can do. Explain a little bit as to why I'm excited about them. So first up, this is the Deathwatch Kill Team operative selection page. As you can see down here for archetypes, they are Seek and Destroy and Security. I'll talk about those in a second because they have completely changed in the new edition. So do not read across what it was from last edition. This is all new, all right? Then you see that the key bit that I'm going to just focus on here is that you're going to get 5 Deathwatch operatives selected from this list. Note that there's no you must take a sergeant and 4 others. Every single operative is completely bespoke. You can take whoever you want, so you can mix it up. That being said, when we look into the rules of what these guys do, I think there's some that you're going to want to take more often than not, if I'm honest. But a really good sort of blend here. You've got the how to recognise them, so the Watch Sergeant, Plasma Pistol, all this sort of stuff, Aegis, Blade Master, Bombard, Breacher, Demolisher, Disruptor, Gunner, Head Taker, Horde Slayer, and Marksman. And so clearly those are your options for various operatives. So let's get straight in and look at the data cards so you understand the context behind what these guys do. In fact, sorry, before I do that, I won't do that. I'll do the rules and ploys, and then we'll do that. So initially, my big concern with this team, only 5 models, is how do you have the action efficiency to deal with hordes? How do you make sure that you're getting the killing potential and all that sort of stuff that you need to do? And they've tried to fix that essentially with this veteran Astartes rule, right? So it's better than the normal Astartes rule. I'll just read it now. So during each friendly Deathwatch operative's activation, it can perform either 2 actions or 2 fight actions. If it's 2 shoot actions and an auxiliary grenade launcher, frag cannon, heavy plasma incinerator, Infernus heavy bolter, frag cannon, heavy plasma incinerator, Infernus heavy bolter, plasma pistol, blah, blah, blah. All the special weapons, basically. There's a few that aren't. One additional AP must be spent for the second action, right? So essentially, if you've got guns on this list, you're going to spend an additional AP to shoot it a second time, but not for the first time. That is kind of important. Next, each friendly Death operative can counteract regardless of its order. Whenever it does, it can perform an additional 1 AP action for free during that counteraction, but both actions must be different. So they've sort of caveated this here in 2 different ways. You have to use 2 different actions here, and you definitely can't do 2 shoot actions or fight actions because that's only during your activation. So you're definitely not going to be able to shoot twice on counteract. That's not a thing, but you can move and then shoot on a counteract for all of your guys. So kind of like Wrath of Vengeance for all 5 models up all the time, all right? So kind of cool in that respect. They've got Wrath of Vengeance built in. Next up is the special issue ammunition. So the rules here is once per turning point when a friendly Deathwatch operative is performing the shoot action in the select weapon step, you can use this rule. If you do, select one of the following weapon rules for that operative's ranged weapons to have until the end of the action. This rule cannot be used with explosive grenades, sea universal equipment, or melter bombs. So key thing here It's only one shoot action. It's not the whole of the turning point. So it's not Phobos where you're going to keep the piercing one, whatever, for the whole turning point. It's just that single shoot action that you're using. And you can't use it on your crack grenades, frag grenades, or the melter bomb. But pretty much everything else that these guys shoot, they can use it on. Really, really cool, particularly when you see some of the scary stuff that's in this book. Really awesome. So, first up, Blast 1. This is going to be massively impactful for people playing against Deathwatch. You need to constantly be aware of your spacing, because if you put people within 1 inch of each other, every single operative on this team has access to Blast 1, and some of the weapons will absolutely destroy anything within 1 inch of each other. So make sure you're spreading yourself out from Blast 1. There are blasts everywhere, available all the time, essentially. Next up, they have Devastating 1. On the weapons that have Lethal 5, that's a nice little buff to make sure they can do a bit more damage to kill people. They can give weapons Lethal 5, Piercing 1, Rending, Saturate, or Severe. So you've got various cool ways of being able to get stuff. What I will note is, obviously Blast 1 is really useful on Into the Dark, because it's going to give you Lethal 5 and then give you Blast 1, because it becomes a blast weapon, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, that is exciting. Note, obviously, you can't have it Blast 1 and Torrent. That would be crazy. So you have to choose one of the others when you're doing that. Really cool, really cool. All right, let's get into the strategic poison and the firefight poison then. So the first up is mission tactics. Select, conceal, or engage whenever a friendly Deathwatch operative is shooting against, fighting against an enemy operative that has an order, that friendly operative's weapons have the balance rule. Initially, when you read this, you think this is really good. And then actually, in application of playing games, it's less good than you think it is. It becomes a bit more situational. So if you're against a horde team and they're playing a cagey game, you're probably not going to be able to shoot or fight against anyone that's on conceal initially, because they're going to be far enough away that you can't reach them. And then you're trying to shoot against people that have already activated, and it's just less impactful than you think. So it's more like a turn 3 and 4 ploy, it feels. And against the lower model count teams, against Raveners and that sort of stuff, if they can charge from conceal or they can do whatever, you might find that you're more often than not actually proccing this as much as you think you would. But it's a cool idea. So it has the potential for you to be able to do both, to be able to get a pretty consistent reroll when you're shooting or fighting. Note, there's no rerolls here for when you're doing retaliating, so therefore you're locked into only doing it when you're doing offensive actions. Next up is the Long Vigil. Whenever an operative is shooting a friendly Deathwatch operative within your territory, you can reroll one of your defense dice. Just a standard defense dice buff. These guys save on 3s, one of them saves on 2s, so pretty useful. I think against shooting teams, you might want to pick this up on turning point 2. Maybe turning point 3, but probably turning point 2, just be able to give yourselves a little bit more reliability and survivability. And the bit that I like about it is how it potentially pairs well with the Shield That Slays. So the Shield That Slays, whenever a friendly Deathwatch operative is within your opponent's territory, normal and critical damage of 4 or more inflict 1 less damage on it. This is huge, right? This is what's going to make you way more durable than what your wounds count suggests that you are, because all of the big weapons that are going to try and kill you now suddenly are going to have to probably take an extra resolve to be able to get through and do the damage they need to do. So really, really impactful this. The bit that I want to just touch on, clearly between these two, it is possible for you to be within your territory and within your opponent's territory. So if you put your toe just over the line of the halfway line, you can be doing both of these, where you're going to get rerolls on your defense dice and you're going to be taking less damage. So that's a really sort of strong combo in turning point 2. If you need to stage more aggressively for turning point 3, you can get yourself into a slightly more defensive position, which is nice. And they shall know no fear. You can ignore any changes to the stats of friendly Deathwatch operatives from being injured. Nice. As you get towards the last turning points, 3 and 4, if you've been taking some damage, this is really, really good to make sure that you're not necessarily reducing your performance as much as you would do normally. So all really strong. I think probably this is the go-to S tier. This is your A tier picks. And then these are sort of your B tier picks, depending upon what you're playing against and what's happening. So a really good set of strategic ploys. So all 4 of them are decent. No issues there. Firefight ploys. Suffer not the alien. Use this firefight ploy after rolling your attack dice for a friendly Deathwatch operative. If it's shooting against or fighting against an enemy operative that doesn't have the Chaos or Imperium keyword, you can reroll any of your attack dice. I like this because if you're fighting Xenos, you're really, really good. You get Relentless for a CP. Really, really cool. There's lots of stuff in this book that has 5 attacks. So potential is to be re-rolling loads of dice for a single CP. Excellent. It's exactly what you need. or to fish for crits potentially if you need that as well. The bit that I don't like about this ploy is that it has like it's situational, right? So I think that this should have a ceaseless variant for everyone else, so that you have like, otherwise in some games this ploy cannot be used and you end up having only 3 ploys. So I would like a lower, like a lessened version, if that makes sense, but I get that it's thematically correct. So cool, so not the alien. Next one, auspicator tracking. Uses firefight ploy when a friendly Deathwatch operative is counteracting. Before it performs any actions, you can change its order. This works both ways, right? So for 1 CP, you can flip from engage to conceal, or from 1 CP, you can flip from conceal to engage. Most of the time, I think this is going to be like a defensive strat, so it's going to force people to stay away from you, because you know that you can go 1 CP, flip to engage, charge, fight, because you can do 2 actions, or shoot, charge, or shoot, smoke grenade, whatever you want to be able to do. And that is going to keep people like away from your operatives, because you have the threat possibility there to do damage to people if they're not paying attention. So really good ploy, really good ploy. I don't think you'll use it too much because people will probably play around it, but it's there for you to use, which is awesome. Next, advanced Auspex scan. Uses firefight ploy when a friendly Deathwatch operative performs a shoot action. Until the end of the activation/counteraction, its ranged weapons have the saturate weapon rule, and enemy operatives cannot be obscured. So this is different to what I said with the special issue ammunition. So you can get one of your shots having like a special buff. This means that if you do it during your activation, both of your shots can be ignoring obscurity, and both will gain saturate. So potentially you can shoot a weapon which is ignoring obscurity, have saturate, and then gain either blast 1, dev 1, lethal 5, piercing 1, rending, severe, whatever you need out of this list, right? So really, really useful ploy. You're going to use this most, I think, like turning points, because you really want to be able to ignore obscurity, and gaining saturate's a nice little bonus. So love this ploy, very, very useful. You're definitely going to want to use that. Next up, transhuman physiology. Uses firefight ploy when an operative is shooting a friendly Deathwatch operative. In the roll defense die step, you can retain one of your normal successes as a critical success instead. This is a 1 CP back pocket item, where essentially when your opponent spikes and rolls loads of crits, you're going to keep this to be able to keep yourself alive when it makes sense. So you'll go, yep, okay, I'm going to spend the CP to guarantee that my guy lives. It makes sense to use this, or to ensure that you're a breakpoint threshold that's useful for you. So again, situational, but when that situation comes up, extremely valuable. So I always like having this in the pocket. So pretty much, as far as I'm concerned, all of these are good. Like all 8 ploys are really strong, really decent. The only one that I'd say, is more situational with stuff, not the alien, because if you're playing against, a Chaos team or an Imperium team, then you're not going to be able to have access to this ploy at all, which is a bit of a shame. But other than that, a really strong suite of ploys. Okay, so let's talk about some data sheets then. So we'll start with the Deathwatch Sergeant. So standard sort of stat line, 3 APL, 6-inch move, 3 up save, and 15 wounds. I'm just going to quickly show you now that there's no leader benefit. They're not 16 wounds or anything like that. But most of the models in this are 1 wound extra than a normal Space Marine would be. Gravis, though, just remain 18. So these guys are 15 wounds. He's armed with the plasma pistol, standard Space Marine plasma pistol, standard power weapon, nothing too different there. But as I said earlier, you can use that special issue ammunition to give this either rending, to give it devastating 1, whatever you need to make it a little bit better, or blast 1 as well if people clump up, to give you that sort of 4-5 damage hitting on 3s, lethal 5, piercing 1, blast 1 is a pretty tasty profile to have available. Or if you're Into the Dark, you could potentially use blast 1 to give your 3-5 non-supercharged version, lethal 5, as an option as well. So an interesting weapon choices here, pretty decent. Next, for special rules, and this is what I think is going to make you want to take this operative pretty much every single game. Maybe there's a game where you don't, but I think pretty much every game you're going to want to take the Watch Sergeant. So first up is Adaptable Armory. You can select 1 additional equipment option, and we'll talk about their equipment in a bit, but pretty much they've got, I would say, a really strong set of equipment options. And for context, the changes in the approved ops 2025 means that pretty much every kill team is only going to have 4 bits of equipment unless you have this rule. So this is a really strong rule, because you're not going to be able to use a scouting step to get any more equipment. Therefore, I think this makes this guy even better in the context of the new rules that are coming out. The next thing that he's got, which I think is also really good, is strategic command. You can do each of the following once per battle if his operative is in the kill zone. Use a Deathwatch strategy ploy for 0 CP. Use a Deathwatch firefight ploy for 0 CP. So you can't use a command reroll for free, but you can use their firefight ploys for free. You can use their strategy ploys for free. This basically gives you 2 extra CP for taking this guy. I think pretty much all the time you're going to want to use it. These ploys are really, really good, so therefore you're going to want to do that straight up. So 2 extra CP and an equipment option on a pretty decent stat line. I think that's a good trade-off. This is a really strong operative for you to be able to take. Next up, we'll look at the Aegis veteran. So stat line, 3 APL, 6-inch move, 2 up save, 15 wounds. Armed with a bolt pistol, pretty boring, but you can make it obviously rending or whatever you want to do to make it a little bit better. The Power Maul and Storm Shield, 5 attacks 3s, 4/6 shock shield. So not the most offensively crazy weapon, but it's got some pretty cool abilities down here. So shield, when this operative is fighting or retaliating with this weapon, each of your blocks can be allocated to block 2 unresolved successes instead of 1. And then Storm Shield, whenever an operative is shooting this operative, worsen the X of the piercing weapon rule by 1 if any. Note that piercing 1 would therefore be ignored. So a 2-up save, reducing piercing by 1 and double parry. This is like a tank model, right? This is your lock down a location and try and, like hold it for yourself and become a bit of a problem, but less offensive output than, say, a power weapon or a blade master in a second. And note as well, 15 wounds, but can potentially be, if he's towing the center line, be getting a reroll and defense dice and -1 damage for critical and normal damage of 4 or more. So that 15 wounds, you're going to feel like a lot more if he's in the right location on the board. So as long as you position this guy correctly, he can be a bit of a tank and just hold down on a location for you. So a really strong data card for the Aegis veteran there. Next up, we'll look at the Blade Master veteran. So 3 APL, 6-inch move, 3 up save, 15 wounds, standard. A special issue bolt pistol, it's like a Reaver bolt pistol essentially. 4 attacks 3s, 3/4, range 8, piercing 1. As I said, you can make that lethal 5, you can make it blast 1, you can make it whatever you want to do with specialist ammunition, so quite nice. Then 2 different melee profiles, which will make sense in a second. The dueling melee profile for the Xenophase Blade, 5 attacks, 3s, 4/6, brutal, lethal 5. The brutal here is really, really good because it means that it's way more likely to achieve kills. Lethal 5 is decent, other than actually it's just a power weapon, right? So, but brutal means that when you're going against most models that aren't lethal 5 or something like that, it makes it way harder for them to be able to parry you out, and therefore you might need less successful hits to be able to net yourself a kill, which is really important. Then you've got a phase sweep, where essentially it's exactly the same, but gives you this phase sweep special rule, but you get 1 less attack, so you're down to 4 attacks. Let's talk through what the phase sweep is then, so it makes sense. Whenever this operative performs a fight action with this weapon profile, if it isn't incapacitated, it can immediately perform a free fight action afterwards, but you must select this weapon profile, and it can only fight against each enemy operative within its control range once per activation or counter action using this weapon profile. This takes precedence over action restrictions, and you can continue to perform the free fight actions until its operative is incapacitated or has fought against every enemy operative within its control range. So, essentially, if this guy charges into 4 dudes, he can spend 1 AP to use this phase sweep profile and fight all of them sequentially, one after the other. So you can get a huge multi-kill off with this guy. So you need to make sure you're really spreading out so you don't get a double kill or triple kill. So this guy can potentially net you a lot of kills very, very quickly, because if he charged into 2 people, normally that would be your charge, you fight, that's you done. But he could charge, fight for 1 APL, kill both those people, and then shoot someone else with a piercing 1, 3/4 damage gun. So pretty nice profile there. He also has adaptive swordsmanship, which is really useful, particularly if you're getting wounded or if you're going against people that are going to modify your hit stat. So you can ignore any changes to the hit stat of this operative's Xenophase Blade. Whenever this operative is fighting or retaliating, you can resolve one of your successes before the normal order. If you do so, that success must be used to block. So basically a pre-parry option available, and ignore modifiers to your hit stat. Really, really strong. Hitting on 3s with these sorts of attack profiles, like guaranteeing you can hit on 3s, is really useful against anyone that's going to try and reduce your ability to do so. So a very competent melee operative. As I said, pretty durable. 15 wounds is nice. It's really good for break points, particularly when you compare add it with -1 damage. I think this is a solid pick. You're going to see him quite a lot, I reckon. Next up, you have the Deathwatch Bombard Veteran. This is one of the Gravis Marines. So what I should have said at the start is you can only take one Gravis Marine per Deathwatch kill team. So this would be one of your Gravis picks, your only Gravis pick if you were to take it. So he's got a bolt pistol, yep, standard. He's got a frag cannon, which is 4 attacks 3s, 5/7 for the shell, piercing 1. Or for a shrapnel, 5 attacks 3s, 4/5, torrent 2. So on Into the Dark, this can get pretty spicy with lethal 5 and dev 1 or something like this. But generically, like 5/7 damage weapon. Maybe if you need a lot of 5 damage, this is the guide to go for. 3 APL, 5-inch move, 3 up save, and 18 wounds. Note, no special rules at all. So this guy is basically, his special rule is he gets more wounds, less movement, and has access to this weapon. Now, the frag cannon, you're going to turn yourself into a turret if you try and shoot this twice, right? So you won't be able to move because it's going to cost you 3 APL to shoot this for a first time and then a second time. But you can shoot the bolt pistol, so you could move, shoot the frag cannon and a bolt pistol, which is apparently easier than shooting the frag cannon twice. This guy, I think I'm a little bit uncertain on. I'm not sure where he fits into the roster. I'm not sure how good he is. I think he's a bit more of a niche pick personally, but maybe I'm just not seeing the use case for him yet. That access to 5/7 though is pretty sporty. I guess if you do spike and get a crit to then get like 2 crits for 7 damage apiece, that can scare quite a lot of Marine teams potentially as well. So I don't know. I'm a bit uncertain when it comes to what this guy's sort of purpose is. But yeah, an interesting model. All right, next up we have the Deathwatch Breacher Veteran. So this guy is armed with a auxiliary grenade launcher with both frag and crack. It's basically a standard frag and crack rounds, but hitting on 3s, unlimited range. He's got a Hellstorm bolt rifle, which is 4/5 damage and torrent 1. He's also got a melter bomb, which is only range 3 inches, and it is a heavy reposition, but it's 4 attacks 3s, 5/3, dev 3, so 5/6 essentially, and it's limited 1, piercing 2, and he's obviously got fists. So a standard Gravis body, 3 APL, 5-inch move, 3 up save, and 18 wounds. Now, what you can't see in this picture here, but you will see on the actual model, is this guy's like absolutely covered in grenades, but he doesn't have any sort of grenadier rule, which is a bit of a shame. So he's just got the ones he can shoot here. He can shoot these grenades. For the first one he uses, it costs 1 AP. Second one will cost 2 APL, but the melter bomb and the Hellstorm bolt rifle can be used. So this guy can reposition 5, shoot his Hellstorm bolt rifle, shoot a crack grenade, or shoot a melter bomb and shoot a crack grenade. He can do that, but he can't do 2 auxiliary grenade launcher shots. I think he's one of the better Gravis options, and the reason is that you can give this Hellstorm bolt rifle piercing 1, and then you can have essentially two shots that are 4/5 damage, piercing 1, hitting on 3s, which is pretty good into most profiles, and he's pretty tanky and that sort of stuff. So I think he's not too bad, this guy. I think he's a consideration for operatives to pick. Next up, we have the Demolisher Veteran. So this guy is back to 3 APL, 6-inch move, 3 up save, and 15 wounds. He's armed with a bolt pistol as standard and a heavy thunderhammer, which is 5 attacks on 4s, 6/7 damage, shock, stun, and he has 2 special rules. The first one is brutal assault. Whenever this operative is fighting, its heavy thunderhammer has the brutal rule, so not retaliating, just fighting. And whenever this operative performs the charge action, its heavy thunderhammer has the ceaseless weapon rule until the end of the activation / counter action. So if you charge this guy and then fight, this guy becomes ceaseless and brutal, and then obviously you can get access to balanced if you're using the mission tactics. Kind of interesting. I'm worried about like how swingy he could be hitting on 4s. That's my big concern with this guy. But 5 attacks, and if you get that ceaseless, maybe that's enough to be able to get it into your sort of the reliable stage that you need. The bit that I think makes this guy a menace for melee teams, though, is this rule: aggressive force. Whenever this operative is fighting or retaliating, subtract 1 from both damage stats of the weapons that any operative in that sequence has to a minimum of 2. So if you have a chainsword and you go and fight this guy, and he's in your territory with a strategic ploy up, he's going to -1 from the 4 damage and the 5 damage, so he's going to make it down to a 3/4 weapon. And then he's going to -1 again to make it into a 2/3 weapon with aggressive force. So if you try to fight this guy in your territory in melee, you're hitting him for 2/3 and he's hitting back at 6/7, which is absolutely wild. So the swinginess of this guy is like kind of made up for with this aggressive force, but I'm like, I just think he might be a bit of a roller coaster. He's probably a lot of fun to play because I can see him going in and completely whiffing, and then equally I can see him going in and doing a whole bunch of damage. I think against Xenos models that have a lot of wounds, like Raveners or something like this, I can see a use for this guy because you also have access to that 1 CP Relentless, and I think that's probably where you want to be able to use this guy, in my opinion. So yeah, a pretty strong operative for counter melee picks, I would say. So if you know you're going to be fighting in melee a lot, this guy might be the one for you. Cool. Next up, we have the Disruptor Veteran. So the Disruptor is a Phobos Marine, so he's 3 APL, 7-inch move, 3 up save, and only 13 wounds. But importantly, that takes you over the classic 12 wound breakpoint. And I talked earlier on about the ploy that you have to be able to upgrade a regular save into a crit save. So let's say someone's managed to get two hits and a crit on their crack grenade and it's going to kill you. Well, maybe you can just make the crit save, whatever it is, so that you only take 12 damage, which is going to keep you alive. So important that you have that extra wound quite a lot, I think. He's on with a Marksman Bolt Carbine, which is just a bolter with lethal 5, and Fists, so 4 attacks, 3/4. But you're obviously taking him for these 2 rules. This stat line isn't particularly impressive. These are the rules that you're taking him for. So, Advanced Omni Scrambler, Strategic Gambit. Select 1 enemy operative, visible 2, and within 6 inches of this operative. Then roll 1d6. In the following firefight phase, that enemy operative cannot be activated or perform actions until one of the following is true. Your opponent has activated a number of enemy operatives equal to the result of the d6. It is the last enemy operative to be activated. This is really, really strong. Like, this is so good against a lot of teams. So a lot of teams have out of action abilities. So maybe they can do a free mission action in the firefight phase, like Tau or Pathfinder, something like this. This guy just says, no, you can't do that, and you can't activate for D6 operatives. So really, really strong. I love this ability. This is like the Phobos ability of the team. I think this is, in certain matchups, going to be a really useful pick to be able to control the sort of the initiative phase of the game, which is really strong. Next up, you have the Auspex Triangulation. The Advanced Auspex Scan Firefight Ploy costs you 0 CP when both the following are true. This operative isn't within control range of any operatives, fair enough. The target of that shoot action, primary target if relevant, is visible to this operative. Note that it doesn't have to be this operative performing the shoot action. Okay, so basically this guy, if he can see the person that someone across the board wants to ignore obscurity on, you can spend that CP for nothing, make it 0 CP, and do it for free. Really, really cool. Like, that's awesome. I like both these rules. I think he is way less killy than most of the other Marines. So you're using this guy as a technical model to be able to give you these abilities. So you have to make sure you're min-maxing these every game, otherwise he's not worth taking. So, but potentially a really awesome model to take. Okay, next up is a Deathwatch Gunner Veteran. So, standard stat line, 3 APL, 6-inch move, 3 up save, and 15 wounds. He's got a bolt pistol for 8-inch range. He also has this heavy plasma incinerator, which is absolutely nuts. So it's 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, 4/6 piercing 1, or you can overcharge it to increase the damage to 5/6, gain the hot keyword, lethal 5 piercing 1. Note, this can be blast 1. It can be devastating 1. It can be rending. Like, this has a lot of killing potential if you give it special ammunition. And he has some fists. No other special rules, because clearly that gun is a special rule. So basically, it's all locked into how powerful this weapon is. So if you need to do a lot of 5 damage to people at range, this is probably the guy to go ahead and do it, because he can then do some pretty big hits against a lot of models. Really strong fire profile. If you want to turn him into a turret, you can shoot this gun twice. If not, you can move, shoot one of these, and shoot the bolt pistol. Or you can, as I said, like move, dash, and shoot this big gun once. Really, really strong. I like this ability a lot. Cool. Next, we have the Head Taker Veteran. So another Phobos Marine, so 3 APL, 7-inch move, 3 up save, and 13 wounds again. He has another special issue bolt pistol, standard Reaver pistol, bolt gun, hitting on 3s, 3/4, range 8, piercing 1. 5 attack combat knives with 3 hit on 3s, 4/5 damage. So all pretty nice. Has the grab, shoot, and grapple launcher rules. So whenever this operative is climbing, treat the vertical distance as 2 inches, regardless of how far the operative actually moves vertically. Whenever this operative is dropping, ignore the vertical distance. So really good for being able to get up onto advantages and stage yourself for long-range threats where you might not be able to be attacked back. So sort of a non-reciprocal threat range. He's quite good for doing that. And he has a special rule, Clandestine Head Taker. This operative can perform the charge action while it has the conceal order. We know how useful that is. It's going to keep you alive for longer and make it harder for shooting teams to be able to get you as a target. And whenever this operative is fighting against an operative that isn't visible, or sorry, it wasn't visible to at the start of the activation / counter action, the first time you strike during that sequence, you can immediately resolve another successes as a strike before your opponent. So essentially, double resolve if you weren't visible to that enemy operative at the start of the charge activation, whatever. Kind of like goes against, like these two rules are a bit like counter synergy, because usually if you're on advantage really high up, you're visible to everyone, but then you don't want to be visible to them to be able to do the clandestine head taker move. Clearly with 4-5 damage, like I think you want to be aiming to kill like 8 or 9 wound operative models without taking any damage in return. And you can't shoot a pistol on conceal, so this is not a silent weapon. If it was, this guy would be like really, really good. But as he is, I think he's like a sometimes pick based on the break, the sort of the threshold of the enemy's damage breakpoints. So some use there. I like him. I like the extra movement range. That's going to catch people out quite a lot, I think. And the fact that you can kill people without taking any damage is really useful. So a solid operative choice, I think. Okay, next we're into another Gravis Marine, 3 APL, 5-inch move, 3 up save and 18 wounds. This is the Horde Slayer veteran. So he has got the bolt pistol, standard, the Infernus Heavy bolter, which has 3 profiles to it. So it has a flame profile, 5 attacks on 2s, 3/3, range 8, saturate, torrent 2. Note that you can make this Dev 1 and obviously lethal 5 and into the dark or inside compounds. So that becomes really good at killing sort of 7 wound models if it comes up. And then you have the Infernus Heavy Bolter Focus Bolt, 5 attacks, 3s, 4/5, piercing crits. You can give it lethal 5 if you wanted to make it more reliably piercing 1. So a good little option there. And then the Sweeping Bolt, 4 attacks, 3s, 4/5, piercing crits 1, torrent 1, and he's got fists as well. So no special rules for this guy. He's just kind of like a generic sort of access to torrent. As I said, you become a turret if you want to use this profile twice. I don't think this guy is that good. I think I would be tempted to take him if he could use the flame and the bolt as sort of like 1 AP each, and he could be then moving and shooting twice. But as he can only sort of turret and shoot this twice, I think most of the time you're not going to be able to get the damage output that you want to from this guy. So I think he's a bit more of a situational pick, in my opinion. I think you want maybe other operatives first, is my hot take. Okay, and finally, we have the Deathwatch Marksman veteran. So we're back to standard stat line, 3 APL, 6-inch move, 3 up save and 15 wounds. He is armed with a Stalker bolt rifle. 2 profiles for that. Mobile, hitting on 3s, 3/4, just a bolt gun. If he's using the heavy profile, which is heavy dash, he hits on 2s, it becomes 3/5, gains lethal 5 and piercing crits, and he has fists as per usual. This stat line is not why you're taking the model. You're taking the model for this rule down here. Vigilant Marksman. This operative can perform the guard action, see close quarters rules, in any kill zone. So that is like the primary reason why you're taking him, because he can go on guard, and against horde teams that's really useful to be able to keep people back. But note, it's not like the Phobos guard. He's doing this from engage, right? So you can be shot back. So you might want to consider smoke grenades from that to keep this guy alive, and using a CP to be able to shoot out potentially safely. Next up, when using the close quarters rules, once per turning point, after this operative performs a free shoot action on guard, it can immediately perform a free guard action. If it does, it cannot counteract nor guard twice if it's counteracted. So essentially, on ITD, this guy can shoot, go on guard, you then enter the room, he shoots you, and then immediately goes on guard, and the next guy comes into the room, and then he shoots that guy as well. So really, really cool. I think that is a useful combo, and I think you'll definitely want to use it against teams that are in the sort of threshold break damage points that this gives. And note that he's lethal 5 base, so if you give this weapon Dev 1 on its special shots, he's hitting on 2s, 3/5, lethal 5, piercing crits 1, Dev 1, and that's going to be really good for sort of doing the right amount of damage to kill, I think, quite a lot of sort of 8 wound models, 9 wound models, and that sort of stuff, and maybe even spike to kill 10 wound models if relevant. So some really strong data cards there, I think. I like pretty much all of them. I think the Gravis Marines are a little bit of a letdown in comparison to the others, if I'm honest. I prefer the special rules of the other guys. The one that I would say to consider taking is the Breacher Veteran with his 2 guns. I think he's better as a Gravis Operative because he can be moving 5 inches and shooting twice. The other 2 Gravis Operatives I think are a bit more situational with the Frag Cannon or with the Horde Slayer Veteran. Just my personal take. But maybe I'm wrong, and there's going to be a use case in future where people would want to use one of those weapon profiles to deal with an enemy. Okay, let's get into the equipment then, where we can then finish up. So, first bit of equipment is this ammunition reserve. So, essentially, once per battle, you can use the special issue ammunition faction rule for up to 2 shoot actions during 1 turning point, but you must select different weapon rules for both uses. This takes precedence over the normal special issue rules. Cool. Nice. So straight up, I think you'll want that because let's say you've used a lethal 5 or you've used a dev 1 somewhere and you want your opponent to respect the blast 1 still. By having this as a back pocket option, the fact that you can do it is usually enough rather than having to do it straight away. But it's also on turning point where it's getting aggressive. You probably want to be using both and getting the damage out there. Nice. Digital weapons, a bit more situational this one. So once per turning point, when a friendly Deathwatch operative performs a fight action, at the start of the roll attack dice step, you can use this rule. If you do inflict one damage on enemy operative in that sequence. Weirdly, like this comes up against damage reduction teams quite a lot. So let's say you're fighting Goremongers and they're going to halve your damage, right? So if you've got a power weapon, you can make it so that you make them 9 wounds. Your first crit that you do is going to be reduced down to 3 damage, and therefore they're going to be now sitting at 6 wounds. And then your next crit is going to kill them. Or like the other one where this is useful is if you have the Demolisher Veteran who's base damage 6. So like in this instance, like he can just roll a single hit and one hit a 7 wound operative. That's kind of useful, or if it's relevant for breakpoints. So this one you really need to think about, like, does this matter for your matchup? It's probably the first one to drop in my opinion. I think it's the weakest of their equipment options, but in certain matchups it makes perfect sense and you'll want to take it. Okay, next up is the Scrutivore Servo Thrall. Once per turning point during a friendly Deathwatch operative's activation, you can use this rule. If you do, during that activation, that operative can perform a mission action for 1 less AP. Amazing. This first bit, so good. So many use cases for this. If you're an ITD, you can open a hatchway and shoot twice with one of your gunners. You can move, dash, like shoot someone and boot the point you're trying to do. You can fight like this. This is just huge. Being 4 APL on a Marine each turning point is really, really useful. You're going to use this on turning point 2, 3, and 4, no doubt. And potentially on ITD, you might be using this on turning point 1. Really, really good. The second part of the rule as well, having an enemy operative within its control range doesn't prevent that friendly operative from performing the mission action. However, in such an instance, after it does so, you and your opponent roll off. If your opponent wins, you cannot use this equipment for the rest of the battle. This is like situationally really good, but let's say you're on turning point 4, and you just need to jump on your opponent's objective. The only way to do it is to charge. You can charge them and just still do the mission action, irrespective of the fact that they are in control range. Really, really good. Combination of these two, like you're taking this pretty much every single game. I don't see a reason why you wouldn't. So really, really strong, definite pick. Next is the Sanctus 5 Bioscryer Cuffs. Once during each friendly Deathwatch operative's activation, before or after it performs an action, if it's not within control range of any operatives, you can use this rule. If you do, select one of the following. That friendly operative regains D3 lost wounds. Really strong. Regaining wounds is always useful. Can't see a reason why you wouldn't ever want to have this. Or remove any changes to that friendly operative's APL stat. Again, incredibly useful. So let's say you jump on and hit a mine or something and they've reduced your APL by 1. No, just bring it back up to full. You've been hit by a shock weapon, doesn't matter, you're good to go again. And then finally, remove one of the following tokens that friendly operative has before that token's activations are resolved, if relevant: neutral fragment, poison, and terrachem. Oh my god, so useful. Let's say you're about to die from poison or whatever it is, rather than taking any damage, you can just remove it. This is massively useful. I said it's not all the time, but like when this comes up, it's going to be really, really good. So this is like an auto take, I think. Most games. This is an auto take most games. These are a bit more situational, but you definitely want these two, I think, throughout the the game. The only thing I will just draw your attention to is you can't do this in control range of any operatives. So if you charge, fight, and don't kill the enemy operative, then you're locked in. But what you can do is if you charge, fight, take some damage, and then kill them, is you can then regain D3 lost wounds during your activation, which might make you less not injured, or it might mean that you essentially took no damage from a fight, whatever it is it's going to be. Really strong set of faction equipment. So that is Deathwatch, and I think they look amazingly fun. I've had some games with them now. I really enjoy playing them. I think there's a use for most of the operatives. I think the only thing I'd say is the Gravis are a little bit of a letdown. I'm not too sure why you can only take one Gravis. With the rules as they are, I think it would be totally fine to say you can have 3 Gravis, but you're losing out on all the other guys and their special abilities. But I think most of the time, as is, you're going to be taking a Watch Sergeant, you're going to be taking an Aegis, you're going to be taking a Blade Master, you're going to be taking, and then a sort of a 2-pick from this, depending upon what your breakpoints are. Maybe you want a more technical weapon against heavy armor. Maybe you want a guard against hordes. Maybe you want to have a ability to delay people, or maybe you want to be able to shoot twice and be more durable. I think that's kind of like how my mentality works. Or if against melee hordes, Demolishers over here, and then the Head Taker is a technical weapon against probably elves and that sort of stuff. So, but the point is, really useful that you have all these sort of abilities and you can just flex between what you want to do. So that's the Deathwatch rules. I'm going to release a video on Patreon for their TAC Ops and just talk through what I think is good between Seek and Destroy and security for these guys. It's a bit more of a detailed tactics video, but that is the team as it stands. Hopefully you found that useful. If you do, consider dropping us a like and a subscribe, and we'll have more of this sort of content out. We've also done videos for the Necron team, which has come out, as well as the terrain rules and for the approved ops cards as well. So make sure you check those out. If you do want to buy this, I highly recommend that you use one of the affiliate links in the description below. Just go down to there, use one of the affiliate links. It will save you some money because they're discounters, providers, and just by doing so, you support the channel because some of that revenue comes back to support us as well, which is awesome. So thank you so much for watching and listening. Hopefully that's been useful, and I'll see you guys on the next one. That brings us to the end of the episode. Hopefully you found something new or useful while listening, and if you did, throwing us a like would be greatly appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss any episodes, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the bell so you get notifications as soon as the next one drops. It really is the best way to help a small channel like ours. And if you can't wait and you do want early access, we have a Patreon where you can get exclusive access to all our content ahead of time. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Just drop a comment below and we'll get right to you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host Ryan, this has been Turning Point Tactics, and we'll see you next week.